Welcome everyone to the Youth Developer. Today is interview with action taker Tara Bradford. Woo! We've been in two events together. We took B School, Marie Forleo's B School, and we are both fire walkers. Yes, went to Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, and we decided to walk on fire. So I know that you were a nurse, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the youth developers here, we understand of working during lunch hours, answering emails during vacation, and working, what's 40 hours? That's like nothing, right? That's minimum. So how did you go from being in service, well, you're still in service, right? But being in service as a nurse to where you are now.
Thank you so much, Patty, for having me here. And I'm so excited to be able to share my story with everybody. There's about 5 years in, I was working in a trauma intensive care unit.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a level 1 trauma center. And it was the level 1 trauma center for 4 different states. And so we were very busy. Saw a lot of really tragic accidents and helped a lot of people get back on their feet after having something really terrible happen to them, but also saw a lot of people not get back on their feet after that happened. And what I realized was that my definition of helping had changed in that 5 years. I mean, a lot can change from the time that you're 19 to the time that you're 24.
Wow. Wow.
So that's what I was going through. I was thinking, I'm helping by providing medical treatment, and I'm helping by, talking to these families and helping them grieve and helping educate them on how they're going to take care of their loved one once they're out of the hospital and all of these things. But it was a really challenging time as a teacher to try to share this information to people who weren't ready to listen, who weren't in an optimal place to learn because they were stressed.
Yes.
And so a lot of teaching the same things over and over again, which was fine. I don't mind repeating myself. But what I was seeing was that a lot of them were saying the same things over and over again. Like, I wish I had more time, or if only I had, and a lot of regret and a lot of blaming time and saying things like, I wish I had spent more time with my family instead of spending so much time working all the time trying to get ahead in my career and missing weddings and 60th birthday parties and anniversaries and all of these things that they had missed out on were kind of coming back to them. And I thought, I wish I could help them when they were thriving, when they were able to work 60 or 80 hours a week to get ahead in their career. Because I'm finding that success doesn't mean that you reach the top of your career path or
Right.
you make the most money or that you've worked really hard and put in all of this time, because at the end, or if it is the end, or when something bad happens, then you realize that that's not really what was important to you, and you got distracted or tunnel vision or something and missed out on those moments. And so I was thinking in the back of my mind, helping to me has changed into being able to help people when they're thriving and when they're willing to learn and when they're able to change before something bad happens, and hope that that bad thing never happens. But you and I both know that we've all had problems, whether it's a car accident or not. Life throws things at us that change our paths, and we have to adapt and change and learn from them and grow. And that was probably the experience as a nurse that made me decide that I wanted to do something different, even though I didn't know exactly what it was at that time. I heard a story that was so impactful on my own life, because as a nurse and as someone who wants to help people, I want to help everybody. And I even want to force help on people who don't want help. I mean,
keeping it real.
I want to help everybody. I heard this story and it really stopped me in my tracks, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't force help on people anymore, even when I know the answer. that's not the answer, and that's not what people want. And so I was at a conference, and they were telling this story about an airplane, and they said, imagine that you're in a plane with 13 people flying across the ocean, and the plane crashes into the water, and there's debris everywhere, and everyone's in the water, and only 3 of you know how to swim. And you look out in the water and you realize that between the 3 of you, you can't save everybody. And you see maybe half of the people are trying to swim and their arms are up and they're trying to float and they're trying to figure it out. And half of the people are drowning. And the presenter asked, who do you save first if you know that you can't get to everybody? And I thought, well, I'm going to save the people who are drowning because the other people are trying to swim. And she answered the question after a few minutes, and she said, what happens when you try to help someone who's drowning?
They'll pull you.
Yes, they pull you down with them. And
Wow.
she said, you need to save the people who are trying to swim because then you can both be saved. They're not down because they're trying and they're coachable and you can tell them what to do and they're already taking action. They might be taking the wrong action, but they're in that mindset where they're going to survive. They're going to figure it out. The people who are drowning, and this sounded so sad to me, but it makes sense. They do take you down with them. And even when you're hanging out with people and you have your peer group and they're kind of negative and they complain a lot and they're really burnt out, you start to feel burnt out and you start complaining a lot and you feel more tired and exhausted just by being around other people who are like that. And so that was one of the most powerful stories I have ever heard where I thought, I need to change the way I see helping.
Wow.
And really help in a meaningful way when people are ready to receive it.
Wow. That is so deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I stopped in my tracks when I heard that. I was like, I've been doing it wrong.
I know that your focus is working with women in leadership, right? Why did you choose women in leadership?
I started out in business and network marketing. It was about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that I started with a cosmetics company, and their mission was to uplift, empower, and validate women. And I was teaching makeup tutorials on YouTube, and I actually had a lot of women come to me and thank me not for teaching them how to do makeup, but for making them feel confident. And I kept hearing that over and over again, and I thought, I really like helping people feel confident, and I want to do more of that, and I want to help women. And I think for me, it was so important to start with women in leadership because I've been reading all of these studies, and the book Lean In is amazing, and Sheryl Sandberg is such an inspiration to me. And I just was reading that book and I thought, there is a special place for women in my heart to like help them grow and take control of their like feminine energy and not try to be masculine in order to be leaders or be so competitive. And for me, in my leadership experience, it was very competitive. And I remember not having very many female mentors. Yeah. And I thought, I want to change that. And I want to be a mentor for women because I didn't have that. And I love all the men who've mentored me and taught me things, and they were great. And I think we need them too. But men do things differently than we do. And I can't pretend to do everything that a man does. And
right.
Men can't pretend to do everything that women do. But I think there's a balance there between the feminine and the masculine leadership techniques that we can learn from both and really be successful without having to change who we are to try to fit into a mold that, that's the way it's always been done, so that's the way it needs to happen. Some of the best advice I got recently, actually, I was speaking at the American Heart Association, And one of our guest speakers was a physician, and he had a lot of experience and was running an emergency department in another hospital. And I had 15 minutes before the conference started to talk to him. And I was just asking him some questions, picking his brain. And I said, what advice would you give to resident physicians who are looking to become attendings and expand their career and be able to be as successful as you have been in your career? And he told me two things, which were great. Like in 2 lines, he became my mentor for that 15 minutes. And he said, hang out with the smartest people who will tolerate you.
Who will tolerate you.
For as long as they will tolerate you.
Wow.
Great. And then he said, I was asking him if he had a preference for choosing a career at a small hospital where I kind of used that quote, do you want to be a big fish in a little sea, or do you want to be a little fish in a big sea? Comparing New York City to maybe a smaller rural hospital in New York. And I was trying to get him to compare those two things and what does he think is better. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, the real answer is you're not a small fish no matter where you go. And I thought that was really powerful too. It's all mindset, and it's all how you look at yourself and how you look at the impacts that you want to make on the world. And if you think you can make a big impact, then you will. Because like Mike Dooley says, thoughts become things. And I really believe in that. And I think what you seek is seeking you.
Yeah, that's so true. And speaking of fish, I used to tell people before B School and before Tony Robbins, I will tell people, all dramatic, I'm a fish in a forest looking for my ocean, meaning I'm looking for my tribe, right? Yeah, one spirit, mind, body, this is the circle that I want. And I even I remember when I said that, I paid as a vendor in Atlantic City to meet like maybe about 2,000 youth developers. But instead of realizing, like you said, so key is that they have to be in a place where they're willing to learn, in that optional place, And so at a conference, a lot of their supervisors made them go. They were really burned out. And I was like, well, I am in the ocean of 2,000 people, but where is my tribe, right? And really, it takes you, or it takes us, to make like one big decision, and most of them one big investment, right? Like the investment we made in B School and for Tony Robbins, which is time and money. It's both, right? You gotta look beyond that. And now I feel like I'm swimming in this ocean. There's so many people I want to bring to the youth developer because we made that decision. But yeah, it does start there. We're not small fishes, right? We're like, not like that we're sharks out there, but we are hungry. We're hungry to grow and to learn, like you said. And I love that. I think Tony talks about hunger, right? And then now that, speaking of hunger, I know that you are new in New York City. Can you tell us your story and that journey of how you got here to the big city?
I can. It's funny that you bring this up because I was just thinking, I was listening to you talking about hunger and wanting to learn. And the thing that stuck out when you were talking about the conference, having people who were forced to go, who weren't ready to learn or weren't in that optimal learning mode where they were ready to absorb the information because they were a little resistant to it. And I think that's an interesting point because it took me like 6 years before I made the leap to come to New York City. I decided in 2009, the first time I came to visit, that I was in love with this city and I wanted to live here and I could see myself being here and thriving and loving it. And everyone had such terrible things to say about the city. They were like, people
No.
hate it, it's dirty and you're gonna hate it, and I loved it. So then I thought, well, I can't tell anyone I loved it because they're gonna think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So I went back to Seattle and I lived in Seattle for 5.5 years. And then I decided I wanted to make a change. I wanted to come to the East Coast and maybe go back to school. So I came to Maine first, and I was in Maine for a year. And both times I moved, when I left Seattle and when I left Maine, it was because something really painful happened in my life where I felt like I had hit rock bottom. And I know I talk a lot about the fear of failure and failing and what it does to us. And I think failure is, we treat it like it's a stop sign in life. It's really just a yield sign. I think it's a sign that you need to slow down and maybe turn a corner or correct your path a little bit, but it's not meant to stop us in our tracks. And I think the first time I had something painful happen in Seattle, I thought I had actually gone through a divorce, and I treated it like a stop sign. I was like, I don't know what to do next because this was a really big failure that I wasn't expecting, and I don't know how to handle it. And I stayed there kind of stuck and lost, like you were mentioning before, being a fish in the forest looking for your tribe. I didn't really know who I was now because now I was divorced, and that was a label that I never thought I'd ever have to deal with. And so I moved to Maine, and I had ended up in a city that I didn't really know anybody in, and it was hard to make friends. And as a result, I didn't really love my job, and then I was in a relationship that ended. And so when all of that combined was painful enough, that was when I decided to take action. And I think it's really similar in medicine too. I see this a lot as a nurse, that people don't come to the hospital or the emergency room or call 911 until something is painful, until it's hurting. And maybe they noticed it the day before or 2 weeks before, or it's kind of been bothering them for a month, but they don't come to the hospital until much later. And I think the same thing happens in our lives. We don't decide to take that massive action until it's painful enough. And Tony Robbins, when we were there, he talked about putting a frog in boiling water and it jumps out. But when you put the frog in cold water and you turn the heat up really slowly, the frog doesn't realize how hot the water is, and it dies.
Wow.
And I think that's what had to happen. I had to fail in a big way, and it had to happen really fast all at once for me to realize that I needed to jump out of the boiling water, because I was just sitting there in it, letting it happen. And so every time that I've been able to take that action and start kind of light a fire under myself to get moving, it has been one of those situations where something happens unexpectedly and I realize that I'm failing at something, and so I can't keep doing the thing that I've always done because it's hurting me now. And how can I turn it around, learn from it, and do something different? And so when I came to New York, that was one of those situations where I thought, I can't keep working at a job that doesn't make me happy. Not that my job should make me happy, but that combined with all of these other things that were going on, I need to change what I'm doing. And it took someone else outside of me asking me, where would you go if you could go anywhere in the world?
Aww.
And me saying New York City to get me to realize that this is where I was supposed to be, and this is where I really wanted to be, but I wasn't admitting that to myself. And once I allowed myself to want that and stopped thinking like, oh my gosh, what is everyone gonna think because I'm gonna move to this dirty city where people are mean and it's overcrowded and super expensive, and I just did it. And I didn't really have a plan. I'm a huge planner, and this was a time in my life where I was like, my only plan is just to get there and have a job for the next 3 months, and then I'll figure it out. Like, there was no commitment. I didn't have to stay if I didn't like it, and I could stay if I did like it. And so leaving those options open and allowing myself to just decide once I realized whether I liked it or not was huge for not feeling so much pressure to make it work necessarily, but to let it work if it was going to.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for vulnerability. I love it. You know, it's so true. I mean, I love how you said yield sign, right? Versus stop. And I call like failure experience, right? Experience is really what teaches us. And I love how you took the leap of faith. You know, and then you said somebody asked you the question, right? If you could live anywhere, where would you go? And sometimes we need those people to ask us real deep questions, you know, which I'm sure you do now as a coach, you know, and just like to help us help you, just guide people, right? And just empower them with questions, not give them the answers, but really empower them. Wow. So Tara, I mean, there's so much, and we could chat here for a lot more. But if you could let people know how they could get in touch with you, if you could share your website and all the information, because we definitely want you back for more stories. And I know that you have in your pipeline you're going to be working with teens and educating them on financial literacy, you know, and I think it's like you said, and when we spoke on the phone, it's so huge. It's so important for them to know now. You know, if we could start in kindergarten, right, and work our way up to high school, I'll do it. But I know, like, when you mention about where people need to be hungry in teens, they want to know about money, right? They're saying, I want to have a business, I want to do this, I want to be a CEO, I want to be an owner. So they're hungry and they're going to be open, and you're going to do an amazing job to sharing your story and giving them information. So please let everybody know how they can get in contact with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure, and thank you for letting me share my story. If anybody wants to get in touch, you can reach me on my website. It's www.tararaybradford.com, and Ray is RAE. And I'm also at Tara Ray Bradford on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
All right, everywhere in social media. And you have Truth Tuesdays, right, on social media? Is that on Facebook?
On my business page, I do Truth Tuesday, short little video clips with little advice snippets for things that you can apply to your real life, and other perspectives on how you can look at situations like failure, like we spoke about.
Yeah.
How to look at that as an opportunity. Little bits of advice like that.
Yeah, and then you also have a blog in your website. I mean, you're a writer and a speaker, so all of that great stuff is in her website, everyone. So please make sure you go there, you like her page, follow her, and all her social media connections. But Tara, again, thanks for your vulnerability. Thank you for your time. And thank you for saying yes to soul care or to self-care, right? And really going the 40 plus hours, the work with no play is no life at all. So thank you for being an example of someone who still has a mission to serve people, right? And now you're doing it in a different capacity, you know, with your glass absolutely full.
Yes, overflowing.
Yes, you are. You're a joy. Thank you again so much for your time, and we'll see everyone later next Friday. Thank you.
Bye.
I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when